Hi, I'm Nicholas Seminario, founder of Dark Angel Company. This podcast is to share the untold stories of just a few of the many people battling mental illnesses in this world. If you're in need of a little inspiration to keep fighting or to feel less alone in your battle, keep listening and share to spread awareness. This is the Dark Angel Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dark Angel Podcast. It is Nick and Max again today. I just want to thank you guys for another great week. Please go like and give a 5-star rating to the show. It really helps us out and we really appreciate it. The last few weeks, me and Max have been talking a lot about goals and what things we'd like to achieve in the future. And we thought that would be a great podcast idea. Max kind of came to me with it, and he was like, I think this is very fitting for our time in our lives right now, where we're trying to figure things out, trying to set goals, try and kind of set ourselves up for the future, for lack of a better words. But that's what we're going to be talking about today, goals. So I want you to get into what goals you have at the moment, what your thoughts are on goals, and what you're doing in your life to help further these goals.
So personally right now, what I'm mainly working towards, I'm just trying to play baseball again in college at a high level. What exactly I'm working towards, more numbers related. I have to throw, my goal right now is 90 to 92. That's my goal right now, and there's a couple other things that accomplish that, or that I can accomplish that kind of help boost that up or make that main goal easier. But I think a good goal has a bunch of different parts to it, and there's never really, especially if it's a bigger goal, or a bigger vision, there needs to be a bunch of little things or little goals along the way that you can kind of use to measure your progress.
Definitely. And I would say, kind of to piggyback off that, you have to set not only realistic goals, but kind of realistic milestones, right? You can strive for the stars and set these quote-unquote unrealistic goals, but you want to make sure that they are attainable and reachable and that you're not setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and I like the term realistic, but I also don't, because sometimes realistic, you don't want to limit yourself, right? Obviously shoot as far as you want to, but be realistic in terms of one step to the next. Don't think you're going to go from making no money, to making $1 million a year. That doesn't happen. You kind of have to find those little milestones along the way, or those little steps to take, because your goals have to be actionable, if that makes sense. There has to be some kind of action associated with it, or it's very hard to measure and kind of achieve or maintain or attain.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, if you, like you said, where if you want to go from making nothing to making $1 million a year, great if you want to do that, but you have to actually take those steps to do that. You can't just wake up and say, I want to make $1 million and not do anything to make that happen.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of plan. How? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is... For me, it's baseball, so I have to get heavier weight-wise. I have to get quicker. I have to get stronger. I have to improve, my mechanics throwing, and make sure they're more fluid, and all these things that go into it. And I have that main goal, but I also have a bunch of little things underneath it that I'm working towards right now, and those are the ones you see the progress on, because those are the ones you can actually every day work towards.
Yeah, so what little goals are you doing to kind of further this progress?
For baseball, the heavier you are, the easier it is to throw harder. And that's what I have to do right now, is I have to throw harder, so I have to get heavier. I'd like to put on another at least 20 pounds, 20, 30 pounds. Another one is strength, I put on more weight in the gym, stuff like that. And then quickness, it's another big thing. Just every day, I do stuff that improves that, in the gym. So, and then with mechanics too, it's just, you go over video of your own mechanics, you watch other people's, you kind of look to improve certain things that don't feel right. And that's kind of just, it's a process. It's not a cut and dry process. It's a little up and down every day. But that's the kind of stuff you can track, you can measure, and that's where you I guess because there's a huge like not I don't want to say anxiety component, but like your goals are something that's important to you. You know, whatever those are. You know, and not achieving those can sometimes make you, or like the thought of not achieving those can, I don't want to say like freak you out, but they can be a little unnerving, you know, and it can make what you're doing not enjoyable. So if you can kind of see where you're at along the way, you know, and every day you can see that aspect of it kind of gets taken away. Even if you have a bad day, you can just say, all right, you know, it's a bad day. Look back at everything that you've done so far and everything you've accomplished in those little steps. And it tends to calm you down. Not calm you down, but calm the nerves, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. I know also you're someone who's kind of hard on yourself too, right? So you're probably trying to make sure these goals happen, right? You set these things and you're going to hold yourself to it. How is that? I know that's very difficult because I'm kind of in the same boat.
That's a tough question because at the end of the day, I think it just kind of comes down to like what you want more than anything. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, you know, I want this and I want that, but do you really want it or do you want it to kind of show people what you have? You know what I mean? So your goals kind of have to mean something a little bit more than just attaining them, if that makes sense. Like it has to have a deeper meaning to you. Like you have to be okay doing all the work and it not happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you almost have to enjoy it that much.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're literally a perfect example. Like, you are trying so hard to kind of get back into this, right? You want to, like you said, go play at the collegiate level and possibly pro. And you're putting the work in, though. Like, I'll call you and it'll be 9 o'clock and you're like, yeah, I got to go throw. Like, 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. Like, not many people do that, and not many people are putting that time, that effort in. And not only are you going at 9 o'clock, it's not like you're waking up at 8 o'clock at night and then going to throw. You're working, you're doing stuff for your family, whatever it is, and then you're still putting your goals. You know, it's like it's so important to you that you're not just pushing it to the side. Yeah. You're doing it.
Well, one thing I kind of like to think about to keep me, like there's days I don't want to. You know what I mean? Like there's days I hate it. There's days I don't want to be there. You just kind of think about what happens if you don't do it for, you know, a couple months. Like realistically, where am I going to be a year from now if I don't do this stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that makes me more uncomfortable than kind of going in the moment and doing it. Because, you know, I might be tired, whatever, but not that you need to kind of run yourself into the ground either. You know, be smart about it. But, like, just think about those things. You know what I mean? Like, you got to make those choices every day. You know, and those are the choices that kind of add up.
Yeah,
you know?
And you do make those choices. You know, and it's
not
like,
every day. Some days I don't. You know, some days I skip it. Like today, I'm tired. I'm probably not going to take a rest day. You know, I'll probably take a rest day today. Supposed to maybe work out, but that stuff, like I some days it's more important to rest and give yourself a break too, than just constantly keep going. Because you need to have those moments where you kind of step back.
Balance.
Yeah,
you need balance, of course. You know, another thing with goals is to work backwards, right? So let's say your goal is to make $1 million a year. See what it actually takes to make that million, right? Let's say for example, you have a company, a clothing company, right? How many shirts do I need to sell? How many t-shirts? How many sweatshirts? How many things do I need to sell to make $1 million a year? And then you kind of go from there. You know, you're not just taking these unrealistic goals and just saying, yeah, I'm going to go make $1 million. What are you doing to, you know, achieve that goal? And that's exactly what it is. You have to work backwards. See where your end goal is and see that end point and work from there and say, okay, well, then I'd have to do this before that and then this before that and then this is where I start and then now I'm going to go. Yeah. And then actually implement it, right?
Yeah, and it's not going to go exactly to plan either. Like, you're going to have to readjust. You're going to have to sit down. It may take a day or two, and then you realize nothing you wrote down is going to work. Nothing you planned out is going to work. And you just have to, like, every day almost kind of, like, just keep not making it up, but, like, at the end of the day, you are kind of making it up as you go, in some sense, you know? And that's the fun of it, you know? That's where your touch and your style comes into it. Because, you know, it's your ideas, it's everything that you're doing, and you're making it up every day.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you know, I think planning is super important, right? I think getting things out, planning it out. But like you said, not everything is going to go exactly how you want it to, but having that plan in place, that structure is so important so you can kind of see everything, see it out.
Yeah, you need the structure. You need the structure because it kind of tells you where you are along the way, too, Because even if it doesn't work, it may, or you think you're going to get somewhere one way, you may take, you may end up having something completely different happen. But then and that takes longer than you think to get the initial part, right? But at the same time, you're knocking out 2 or 3 things that you needed to do later on down the list. So the plan is important because you need to have a direction, right? But you also need to not be so stuck to the plan that you can't adjust.
Yeah, totally. And also kind of like to continue with that, I think also you should have something called a master plan, right? So this is kind of like a plan in the grand scheme of things. This is that wide, huge plan overall, right? Which is definitely subject to change. Things might not go exactly how you want, but it's kind of this general idea of what you're trying to accomplish. And then within that master plan, I would say having something like a weekly plan. What am I going to do this week to help me achieve that master plan?
Yeah.
Say if your master plan's a 5-year plan or a year plan, then within each week, okay, how am I going to get to this 3-month goal or that 6th-month goal? That's kind of what I would say I'd do, and kind of have that master plan as something subject to change, but that general idea, and then have your weekly plans to kind of help you kind of get closer to that goal.
Yeah, so I like that. What I've kind of done more recently than anything, in the past I've been able to plan more or plan further out, and have a better idea of what's going to happen. As of recent, I've kind of what I do is I just write down, say, what I need to do for whatever it is, whatever I know in the moment I have to do. It may take me a day. It may take me 2 weeks to get it all done. It may take me a month and a half. I write down everything I've got to do, and then I just kind of get to doing it. And whenever it gets done, it gets done. Because the weekly plan worked for me, but just because of where I'm at, it was too much of a plan, if that makes sense, and not enough it was just unrealistic.
No flexibility.
Yeah, it didn't give me the ability to kind of do what I needed to do, and it was too much work, and then you end up getting stressed out because you're not getting everything done, and then, at the end of the day, you need to be able to keep your mind fresh and in a good place because that's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of keeps that vision of whatever it is positive.
Yes, totally. And even for myself, I'm someone who's very schedule-oriented, goal-oriented, right? So I, without even really knowing it, I give myself a weekly plan, right? So if I have papers due or homework due or tests or whatever it is, I'm kind of setting this all up in my head. And then on top of that, I still have to get the stuff done for this, right? I still have to get my work stuff done for, caddying. So I have a lot of different things, and I have to kind of make sure that everything gets done, and it does get overwhelming.
Yeah, and sometimes, you just have to accept, too, I'm sure you've had this, where things just aren't going to get done.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. And those are the days you just get done what you can, you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you just do more, And I learned that I had a job in South Carolina where I was working, I guess it was construction kind of, and I noticed how my boss always had way too much to do, but he just did what he could and then called it a day and then came back the next day and did what he could, and that was really cool because that taught me how to do that. And I'm now able to kind of apply that to my life. I've got a bunch of stuff, specifically right now, homework that I've got to do. I've got one whole class I haven't started yet, and we've got a month left in the semester, not even. And it's due in 3 weeks, and that's just one of the things, I'm not going to be able to get it all done in one day. I'm just going to have to probably take a week, do a little bit each day, and knock it out that way. And eventually it'll get done, but every day it's going to be hanging over my head. But that feeling of hanging over your head, it's not good. It's not a good feeling. So you almost have to be okay with it being there.
I have like a mental like checkbox. Like
Yeah.
I know what things I need to check off, and like you said, like there's days where you can't do everything.
You get like one thing done some days too.
Yeah, and like it stinks. It's not fun, but
it is one thing done. It's better than none.
Exactly. And even like whatever you're doing, as long as it's trying to further that goal, and you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage, then I don't see any issue with that.
No.
But
Yeah.
to kind of segue into something, I think people who have anxiety, depression, sometimes feel stuck with goals, right? I think they find it hard to reach out and kind of further these goals. I've been in spots where I don't want to leave my room, and that's hard to kind of get out of. That's hard to climb out of that hole and go and try and achieve your goals. You have things that you want to do, but it's like you're stuck.
What I would say to that is just kind of set smaller ones. Like create small. A lot of the times, like what I've found I need in moments where you're just not really feeling like you want to or two can do anything, is you just got to get the ball rolling with small wins. Because those like even if they're really small, as so much as like, all right, I'm gonna clean my room today. You know what I mean? Like that's something I've been putting off. You feel really good when you're done because your room's clean. And it almost feels like you have your mind's clear. At least personally. So.
Yeah.
For me, when I'm in those moments, I set smaller goals, smaller wins, essentially, and you just try and build those up. And you don't really think about. A lot of times, I've noticed too, when that happens to me personally, I tend to be thinking too much about the big picture and not really just staying in the moment. And when I stay in the moment, and you just kind of forget about the big goal for that day, that week, whatever. Like, don't think about it. Obviously, it's what you want. That's not going to change. And you'll know what your goals are. But don't think about it, because it's just, at least personally, like it stresses me out more sometimes. So I set little goals, even if they're not related to it. So much is like, all right, I'm going to cook my food today. I'm going to clean my room. I'm going to clean my car, and I'm going to go to work. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to go to bed. Like if that's all I get done today, okay, that's all I get done.
But you're setting a goal in your head and you're getting that same feeling.
I'm accomplishing those couple things, and then tomorrow I'm going to take that feeling. I'm going to accomplish a couple more things. And eventually, like, change isn't going to happen in a moment. It's going to happen over a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months of you continuously doing things.
Yeah, consistency.
And like, those goals aren't accomplished in, at least from what I've noticed in baseball. Like the goals that I've wanted to accomplish don't get accomplished through the days I'm feeling good. It's the days you don't feel good, that if you can get one or two things done and you can just keep the ball rolling, that's what makes the biggest difference in the end. Because sometimes all it's about is getting back to when you're feeling good, or remember when you pitched, you know what I mean? Some days you couldn't find it. You just had to get through it and then get to the next one.
Yeah.
And
those days I feel like kind of define you too, right? It's those days where you kind of have to dig deep and like, you got to find yourself.
And it feels a whole lot more rewarding on those days, when you can get a couple things done. And it's like, wow, I didn't really feel like doing anything and I did all this. Because sometimes, you get on a roll, you end up doing a lot more than you think too.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. And kind of with that feeling of being stuck, I've been there also. And I think it really has a lot to do with mindset.
I think it's all mindset.
Yeah. And I noticed, in the past, I would kind of let that take over me, right? And then I would sink into those feelings. And then now not only do I feel stuck, but now I'm unhappy, right? So now I'm feeling unhappy. I feel like there's no escape. I'm not happy. I don't know what I can do. Now you're thinking about all the negatives and things now are just starting to pile on you, right? Now it's a snowball effect. Now you're not going to want to leave your room. You're not going to want to do anything. And like I said, it's this feeling of being stuck. Like you can't move. But to kind of get out of that and fix that, I really think, like you said, starting with those small goals, I think is huge. 1,000%. I think you need to set those small goals. But another thing, you have to change your mindset. Like, you really need to look at what you do have and not what you don't. I just had a conversation with somebody the other day. They were upset. And, you know, they were like, oh, I'm going through this, whatever. And I was like, look, you have an amazing life. You know, look, I get things are going on, but you have an amazing life. You can do this. You have this going for you, this. Why are you looking at this one thing that's negative? And they were like, wait, you're right.
Because in your head, you want it to be perfect. You know?
Yeah. And nothing's perfect.
It's never going to be.
Nothing's perfect. And once I stopped looking at those negative things, and look, like I always say, I'm not perfect. There's plenty of times where I look at the negative side of things.
Yeah.
But
that's just your nature.
Yeah. And there's plenty of times where I don't, you know, because I have this mental block in my head where anytime a negative thought comes in my head, my first thought is no. And then all I hear is no in my head, and I'm like, okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't let it get into my head and then sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I know is bad stuff is going to come from that. And I think it's a lot easier in the summertime, you know, when it's nicer out. That stuff's not as common.
Well, I was going to say also, like, I know in the winter it's hard because you can't really go outside, and being outside is obviously good for you. But the one thing I'd say too, like nowadays at least, I notice when I get into those feelings of stuck, I'm on my phone way too much. I'm on social media way too much, at least for me. Might not be for other people. You know, everyone can kind of handle it at different levels, but the second you start getting caught up in comparing, even if it's not really conscious, like you're not really thinking about it. When you go through and you're looking at what everyone else is doing, it's like, oh, you know, I could be doing that. I could be doing, you know what I mean? Like that freaks you out a little bit. And if you're feeling that, I can't stress it enough. Put your phone down.
Yeah.
You know, go outside, touch some grass, like seriously, just go for a walk, you know, and your mind will calm itself down. Go spend some time outside. Like at least personally, like when I go outside in those moments and I kind of do something outside, go on the beach, go for a walk, whatever it is, your head calms down. You completely forget what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
And that has also been like a huge thing for me. You have to be able to kind of separate yourself from your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's a skill, you know, and it takes time to build that skill because you have to find out what works for you. In those hard moments, obviously in the easy moments, you know, it's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but in those moments where you're a little stuck or you're a little anxious, you know, or even depressed at times, just walk outside and let your mind go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about your problems for a second. Don't tell yourself that they're not there, you know, because sometimes that can make you feel even worse. Just don't even think about it. Let your mind go somewhere else, and eventually you'll come back to it, but you'll come back to it with a fresher feeling.
Yeah, and look, we're all human, right? We're all going to experience these feelings. You know, we're going to experience being stuck. We're going to experience not being able to go achieve our goals, right? We might be hard on ourselves. We might not be hard enough on ourselves, right? But you have to realize when you're trying to get out of a funk, you have to, that's another goal you need to set, right? You got to push yourself out of it.
That's a goal in itself.
Exactly. And it's like I said, we have to realize we're really not that stuck. You know, when you're feeling stuck, you really need to realize there's people out there who are struggling with things similar. Things, you know, where it's like we get through things, but it's when you kind of let it overcome you is when it's a problem. It's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, and like one thing I've really noticed too, like one, you can't really stop emotions no matter what they are. You're always going to feel them, all of them. And it may not be as high and low, you know, in the good times or when you're feeling good about like mentally, you know, you can kind of control that a little bit better. Like you're still going to feel just as bad and just as good. But you know, the one like in those bad moments, normally what's stopping you the most is yourself. Like the thoughts that you're having, the emotion, not the emotions you're feeling, but the way you're letting the emotions kind of control you, you know? And it's tough. It's really tough, especially at a younger age too. If no one, like, it's a skill to learn how to.
Yeah, it took me 20 years.
Yeah,
you know,
to really learn how to not have a bad day and not have a bad day.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yes. And, you know, I think most importantly, especially with this kind of feeling stuck topic, I think you have to realize too, sometimes it is good to look at the bigger picture in this instance. Why are you waking up tomorrow? You're waking up to achieve these goals. You do have a purpose. I think that's another big thing with us is purpose, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people lack a purpose. They feel like
Yeah.
there's no purpose in life. And there always is. It's like you need to look at things differently. And I think when you do change it, you're going to remind yourself to not give up. You're going to remind yourself you're not stuck. You're going to remind yourself that, hey, no, I'm doing this. Like, this is going to be great. Like I said, we're people where you could be saving 1,000 people. You could do it every day. And then after a while, you're like, oh, well, I've been doing that for so long. That's not as great.
Yeah.
But, like, you're saving 1,000 people.
Yeah, and like the thing about purpose too is that your purpose almost needs to be something you can't measure. Like that's your why. That's something that makes you not motivated, but makes you want to do good or whatever it is that you're aiming for. It helps push those goals along because that is something that's like deeply attached to who you are. It's not just something, it's like, oh, my purpose is I want to make a lot of money. Well, that's not really a purpose. That's a goal. You know what I mean? And like, I want to be able to provide for my family. That's my goal. If I can do that through money, sure. If I can do that in another way, awesome. So that's the part that I feel like people kind of get confused is like purpose and goals. Two separate things. They need to be like, they're very different. Goals you can measure, purpose you can't.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a really, really good way to put things because, like a goal, exactly. You could schedule this out. You could plan it out. You can, try and run as strictly to that schedule as you want, but purpose is different, right? A purpose is kind of that meaning of life, right? It's giving you importance.
It fills you with life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I don't think that's measurable either.
Yeah.
I think it's something where you kind of just need to learn it and don't get greedy either. You have to understand if you're doing something good, don't try and look for that next thing.
Because especially if you're doing something good, like there's going to be times that people take advantage of you. That's just let karma do its job. Karma will happen.
Yes.
And
like another example, I know somebody else. They're doing a million things right now, right? They're balancing a million things and they're like, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
It just feels like you don't go anywhere sometimes.
Yeah, and you kind of just need somebody to, either yourself or somebody else, to kind of ground you and just be like, look, you're doing this, and this. You're doing amazing. Like, what are you even saying?
Yeah.
That's not realistic, Like, you're doing things that are amazing.
Yeah.
Look at the things that you're doing, not what you're not doing.
Yeah.
Because I think people get caught up in that a lot. They think, oh, I should be doing this also. I should be doing that. Like, no. Be present. Be happy with what you're doing. Be proud of yourself. Like, look, you and I, we both know we're hard on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to achieve the best. I want to be the best person out there. I want to be successful. Like, but I also realize all the steps that I'm going through now and all the stuff that I'm doing, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back. I am proud of myself, right? I'm 20 years old. I'm doing a lot. And don't get me wrong. There's times where I'm like, oh, I could be doing more. But then I realize I'm like, I'm doing a lot.
Yeah. And like about kind of doing a lot too. When you're talking about that person who kind of get like almost desensitized to it.
Yeah.
When that happens, go spend some time with your friends. Go do something. Like, just take the day off. Like, don't worry about it. When you come back to it the next time, you're going to feel better about it. It's going to feel fresher. So, when you do something too much, it doesn't feel as fresh. And if that's how you keep yourself going, you just take a day, or, you go golfing for a day. You go golfing for a weekend, whatever it may be, whatever it is to you personally, you just kind of go do that and you don't worry about anything. Like, you have to be willing to separate. It's like when you come home from work, you see your family. Say you had a bad day at work. You don't want to carry it into the house.
Yeah.
And being able to separate the different things that are happening in your life is going to allow you, at least from what I've experienced, it's going to allow you to enjoy each one more, because it's all in the sense of like when you don't do something.
You
If you
appreciate
do
it
something
more.
too much, you don't appreciate it enough. You take it for granted. You don't do it enough, and you really want to do it. So you kind of have to find that, like, play that game with yourself a little bit.
Totally.
You know?
And like, it's balance. You need balance in life, no
Yeah.
matter what it is, whether it's goals, ambitions, work, fun, whatever it is, you
Yeah.
need balance.
Yeah.
And, like you said, how if you're stressed, whatever, you go play golf. Like, that's, like you said, for me, for example, that's why I feel like I'm sane.
Yeah.
I have my work time, I have my play time, and, I have the balance between the two. I'm in school, right? I'm working. Getting my real estate license. I passed that first test, by the way.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I'm doing all of this, and it's overwhelming. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But then, like today, I'm going golfing, so I get to. Right now, we're recording a podcast. It's early. I don't know if you guys could tell, but
Not awake yet.
later on in the day, I'm going golfing, and so look, I get to have my work time and I get to have my play time. And it's like, it's so important to have that balance. It's important to do those things and enjoy your free time, and it makes my goals a lot easier, right? It's like, okay, I can go do that, and then when I get home, I'm gonna go do this. And it kind of gives yourself that break and that balance that you really, really need.
Yeah. And I used to be so set on finding balance. And then I realized, like, balance can only, like, you can't really find balance. You just, like, things are going to change. Like, some days you're going to be doing less than others. Some days you're going to be doing more than others. You're going to have more free time certain days. You might not have for a brief period of time in your life, especially if you're working towards something. You might have to put in more hours and less playtime. You know what I mean? And then there's other times where you're going to have a lot more free time and you're going to be doing less. Like, balance isn't just within a day 50-50. It's over a period of time. It changes. Every day is going to be different, every month, every week. Like, there's no set way. There's no set guideline, And as long as you are, I guess, you're working towards your goals and you feel and you're happy with how that's going, like, that's balance.
Yeah.
Being out of balance is when you don't feel like you're doing enough and you're doing a lot. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you need to balance out on the other side.
Totally. Goals are so important, and these are things that you should implement into your everyday lives, and you should, prioritize. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have that balance and you're not overworking yourself to kind of get yourself to burn out. Set these goals, set these expectations, try and strive for the best, but don't push yourself too hard. Thank you guys so much for listening, and don't forget to check out Dark Angel Company on Instagram at Dark Angel Co. and online at darkangelco.com. If you're interested in supporting and spreading awareness towards bringing light to a dark topic together, then tune in next time.